Imagine you are a police officer. It is 3 in the morning. Your radio goes silent. And then you see something standing at the end of a dark road that makes every single hair on your body stand straight up. These are not ghost stories. These are not made up. These are real documented encounters reported by real law enforcement officers across the United States. And trust me, by the time we get to story number 3, you are going to want to sleep with the lights on tonight. Welcome back to True Scare Tales. If you are new here, this channel is your home for the most terrifying, most chilling, and most unexplained true stories you will ever hear. Before we dive in, do yourself a favor right now and hit that like button and subscribe. We drop new videos every week, and you do not want to miss a single one. Now let us get into it, because these 3 stories are going to stay with you for a long, long time. Our first story comes from a highway patrol officer in rural Louisiana. We will call him Officer Darnell, because he asked that his real name not be used. Darnell had been on the force for 11 years. He had seen accidents, he had made difficult arrests, and he had dealt with more than his fair share of dangerous situations. He was not the kind of man who spooked easily. But one night in November of 2019, everything changed for him. He was parked on the shoulder of Highway 190, just outside a small town called Krotz Springs, running radar around 2 in the morning. The area was completely empty. No cars, no people, just flat dark land on both sides of the road and the hum of his patrol car engine. He said he noticed something in his side mirror first. A figure, standing maybe 200 feet behind his car. He assumed it was someone whose vehicle had broken down, maybe a drunk driver who had walked off the road. He stepped out of the car and called out to the figure. No response. He switched on his flashlight and pointed it down the road. The figure was there, standing completely still, and Darnell described it as tall. Too tall. He said it looked like a person, but the proportions were just slightly off. The arms were too long. The neck looked stretched. He called out again, identifying himself as law enforcement. Still nothing. He said he started walking toward the figure, hand on his holster, and then something happened that he still cannot explain. The figure turned and walked directly into the woods on the side of the road. Not running, just walking, calmly. He followed with his flashlight and found no footprints in the wet mud at the tree line. None, as if whatever he had seen had never touched the ground. Darnell went back to his car, drove straight to the nearest gas station, and sat there under the lights until his shift ended. Now look, there are people who will say it was a trick of the light, a tall person who just happened to walk away. But Darnell says there is one detail he left out of his official report, because he did not think anyone would believe him. He says when the figure turned to walk into the trees, it turned its head and looked directly back at him. And he could see, even from that distance, that the face had no features. Just smooth. Flat. Empty. Our second story takes place in a small town in eastern Ohio in the summer of 2016. A pair of officers, partners who had worked together for 6 years, were responding to a welfare check on an elderly woman whose neighbor had not seen her in several days. We will call the officers Mike and Carla. They arrived at the house around 9 in the evening. The lights inside were on. They knocked. No answer. They announced themselves. Still nothing. They made entry through an unlocked back door, and that is when things got deeply wrong. The house smelled fine. That was the first thing Mike noticed, because usually in situations like this, if something bad has happened, the smell tells you before anything else does. But the house smelled completely normal. They moved through the kitchen, the hallway, the living room. Everything was in order. Almost too in order. And then Carla stopped in the hallway and pointed to a rocking chair in the corner of the living room. It was rocking. Slowly. On its own. There were no windows open, no fans running, no air conditioning. The house was completely still except for that chair. Mike radioed it in as a possible missing person situation, and they continued checking the rooms. The back bedroom door was closed. Mike pushed it open, and the room was empty. Bed made, curtains drawn. But sitting on the nightstand was a glass of water with ice still floating in it. Fresh ice. Someone had been in that room very recently. They cleared the rest of the house and found no one. They searched the property outside with flashlights for the next 40 minutes. Nothing. When they came back inside to wait for backup and begin documentation, Carla noticed the rocking chair was still. And the glass on the nightstand. She went back to check. The ice had not melted at all. She said it looked exactly the same as when they first saw it, like time in that room was not moving the same way it was for everyone else. The elderly woman was found 3 days later at a relative's home in Pennsylvania. She said she had left the house the morning before the welfare check was called in. She had not been home for almost 36 hours before the officers arrived. So who put fresh ice in that glass at 9 o'clock at night? No one ever found out, and Carla said she requested a transfer to a different district about 2 weeks after that night. She never gave a specific reason to her supervisor. But Mike said she told him quietly, the day before she transferred, that she did not want to respond to any more calls in that neighborhood, because she had driven past that house once more after the incident, and she swore the rocking chair was moving again. Our third and final story is the one that personally disturbs me the most. This one comes from a sheriff's deputy in a county in northern Minnesota. He has spoken about this publicly in a recorded interview, so we are using his real first name, which is Thomas. Thomas was responding to a noise complaint late on a winter night in January of 2021. A neighbor had reported loud banging sounds coming from a vacant farmhouse about a mile off the main road. Thomas drove out alone. He described the drive-in as deeply uncomfortable. He said every instinct he had was telling him to turn around, and he had been in law enforcement long enough to take those feelings seriously. But he had a job to do. He parked outside the farmhouse, stepped out into the freezing Minnesota night, and heard nothing. Total silence. He approached the front door, which was slightly open, and pushed it inward with his flashlight on. The room was completely empty. Just old wooden floors and bare walls. He moved through the house room by room. Nothing on the first floor. He moved toward the staircase leading to the second floor. And at the top of the stairs, standing in the dark, was a child. A little girl. Maybe 8 or 9 years old. She was wearing a white dress, no shoes, just standing there in a house with no heat in the middle of January. Thomas said he immediately went into protect mode. He called up to her, told her it was okay, that he was a police officer and he was there to help her. She did not respond. He started up the stairs, and then she smiled at him. He said it was not the smile of a child who was scared or confused or relieved. He said it was a smile that felt ancient, wrong, completely disconnected from any emotion a child should be feeling in that moment. He said he stopped on the third step, and in the amount of time it took him to blink, she was gone. Not down the hallway. Not into a room. Just gone. He searched every inch of that second floor. Checked every closet, looked under every surface. She was not there. He called it in immediately. A full search of the property and the surrounding land was conducted that night and into the following morning. No child was ever found. No missing child report matched the description. And Thomas said when he got home that morning and sat down at his kitchen table, he realized something that he had not registered in the fear of the moment. That little girl had not been leaving any breath in the cold air. And it was minus 12 degrees outside. These 3 officers put on their badges, they do the job, and sometimes the job takes them somewhere they were never supposed to go. Something is out there, in the dark corners of this country, in the empty roads and the quiet houses and the frozen farmhouses, something that does not follow the rules of the world we think we understand. And the people who see it, they never talk about it the same way twice. Because some things, once you have seen them, you spend the rest of your life trying to unsee. That is all for tonight from True Scare Tales. If this video gave you chills, do me a favor and drop a comment below telling me which story disturbed you the most. I read every single one. And if you know someone who loves a good true scare, share this video with them right now. Let them lose some sleep too. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe out there, and maybe leave a light on tonight.